Bonjour, mon cher. My name is Tony.
It's the land of hospitality, unless you don't belong there.
That was the tagline from Walter Hill's Southern Comfort, and ain't it the truth? It always stuck with me, lodged in my brain, because I've been places where the philosophy of it seems the order of the day, and very much so. You know the sort of places, the ones that have signs on the outskirts of the town sporting the legend, "Welcome to," when what they're really doing is advising, why don't you fuck off somewhere else? Those places where there is an instant atmospheric edginess, where people look at you slightly askew with intense scrutiny, studiously, judgmentally even, where you walk in a pub and the conversation dampens down or tails off and eyes turn towards you. The bartender unsmilingly asks, "What can I get you?" without any warmth or indication that he really wants to serve you. A subtext in the phrase posing, "What are you doing in here? This isn't your kind of place, is it?" My hometown was like that, and the place I live now, only for the past 26 years, is like that. Maybe it's just me who gets this sort of impression and treatment, I sometimes think, but seeing it meted out to others informs me it's probably not. Always bear in mind, you're not paranoid if they're really out to get you. I don't mind it. Means I don't feel compelled to socialise with anyone, make banal, vacuous small talk, engage in anything, which is ideal for someone antisocial like me who finds other people a fucking nuisance for the most part. I can mind my own business and everyone else can mind theirs. Sure, they can shoot furtive looks in my direction, mutter and brood into their beer or cappuccino, or ignore me altogether. We can keep a mutually beneficial distance and all is fine. Such are the rules of non-engagement. It's only when those rules are broken by either party there's a transgression of some sort, well, then we may have a problem. In Walter Hill's Southern Comfort, Houston, we have such a problem. Hill is one of my favourite screenwriters and filmmakers. He tells stories of manly macho or womanly wacho things like steely criminality, bare-knuckle prize fighting, getaway driving, street gang warfare, outer space monsters and all sorts. He's like a less confrontational and more commercially savvy Sam Peckinpah, whilst managing to retain that maverick spirit of electrifying wonder and adventure in his work, the capacity to thought-provoke, thrill and mythologize with the best of them. I like Walter Hill, well, for the most part. He's turned in some clunkers, but more often than not, when he sparks the target, he does so with glorious creative accuracy. Southern Comfort has been likened to John Borman's seminal backwoods hillbilly ass-raping rampage shocker Deliverance. And yes, there are some narrative similarities, but nowhere near close enough to judge it as the imitation some critics dismissed it as being. Southern Comfort is its very own, very distinctive film, and although Hill might crib some cues from elsewhere, he has no need to steal or misappropriate anything. What I'm telling you is, this is not a Deliverance rip-off replica or wannabe. The focus of the story is the plight of a squad of the Louisiana Army National Guard on manoeuvres through dense and sprawling swampland. The year is 1973. Straight away, echoes of the Vietnam War instantly engage thrusters, and of course, as events unfold, the stronger those echoes inevitably become. Whether or not this was a conscious intention by Hill, who co-wrote the screenplay and directed, is debatable. All I can tell you is, he says he was aware that it would be seen as a metaphor for Vietnam, and before filming, he addressed the cast, apparently telling them, "People are going to say this is about Vietnam. They can say whatever they want, but I don't want to hear another word about it. Make of that what you will." Corporal Hardin, Powers Booth, is a laconic, cynically appointed transfer from the Texas Army National Guard who's just moved locally. This is his first weekend with the squad. He's not greatly impressed with the loud-mouthed, gung-ho, good old boy superiority complexes of his new comrades, some of whom don't seem to have two brain cells to rub together. In civilian life, he is a married chemical engineer who wants no involvement in a fuckfest with prostitutes party to mark the end of the manoeuvres, arranged by Private Spencer, Keith Carradine. Spencer is a cocky, wheeler-dealer, Jack-the-Lad type. However, as he seems to be the only squad member with a functioning intellect and capacity for rational thought, they strike up a rough and ready camaraderie. The men are led by decorated ex-Vietnam vet Sergeant Poole, Peter Coyote, and his second-in-command Sergeant Casper, Les Lanham. Hardin's snap assessment of the grunts are they're a goon squad of brainless rednecks who embrace sociopathic stupidity like it's an art form. Subsequent events prove he's not far off the mark. Trekking through a swamp in midwinter is no picnic, and things take a fateful turn when the squad hits a body of water that shouldn't by rights be there. Heavy rains have flooded what was, up until recently, terra firma. Either they go back and start over, or they try to find another way around. The troop are only allowed blank ammunition, but Mega Redneck 1, Reese Fred Ward, has brought along some live rounds. He finds a Cajun poacher camp along with 4 canoes. His suggestion is that they borrow 3 of the canoes to cross the water. Poole agrees, deciding to leave the poachers a note explaining. Halfway across, the Cajuns return to their camp. Mega Redneck 2, Private Stucky Lewis Smith, thinks it would be a hilarious jape to fire blanks at the none too happy hunters with his machine gun. Not knowing they are blanks, of course, one of the Cajuns returns fire, blowing Poole's head off. High school football coach Bowden, Carlos Brown, a borderline psychotic, I'm guessing it's in the job description, panics and capsizes the canoes, so the men must scramble through the water to the shore. With Poole dead, the inadequate Casper takes charge. They've lost the map, compass and radio in the water. The objective is now to march out of the swamp to civilization and safety, taking Poole's body with them. However, the Cajun hunters have other ideas and would much prefer it if they didn't leave. Not ever. The stage is set for a nightmarish and gruesome pursuit, survival, action, thriller and drama, and it's one of the very best on offer. If it's not quite on the same chilling and psychologically disquieting level as Deliverance, let me tell you, it's damn close. Now, having said that, it might come as a surprise to learn it was a box office flop, something Walter Hill remained at a loss to explain, as he felt it was a good film, one he was proud of, and understandably had expectations that it would do okay. Somehow, though, it failed to resonate with general audiences or even the hack and slash collective or anyone else much. I can only imagine that the things I personally liked and enjoyed about it were experienced negatively by a lot of other people. I sort of see the how and why of that, but still, you know, it's a modern classic. On the technical side, something that greatly benefits the film and instills that carefully crafted atmosphere of foreboding and dread is the location shooting. Andrew Laszlo's militaristic-hued cinematography captures the wintry swampland backdrop with a photorealistic precision. The Louisiana swamps look cold, grey, fetid and deadly, as indeed they proved to be, because it was a tricky shoot in winter for the cast and crew. Cameras sank in the mud, the landscape kept physically changing, the cast were immersed in freezing water for real, and the weather often turned nasty on a dime. Worth it though for the authenticity of it all. Those actors really do look cold, exhausted and fucked up. The environmental realism sweeps the audience along with the troupe on their journey. Raikuda's twangy and low-key soundtrack simmers and broods nicely in the background, whilst latterly the diegetic Cajun tunes effectively crank up the tension in the climax. I don't want to keep citing Deliverance, but to some extent I'm finding it unavoidable because of the superficial core similarities. A group of men in an unfamiliar environment hunted, terrorized and or killed by those from the indigenous population, something both films share. Outside of that though, they sheer off on different existential pathways once the groundwork is laid. The protagonists in Deliverance did nothing stupidly antagonistic apart from turning up where they weren't welcome. Through no real fault of their own, they find themselves in a life and death struggle for survival. Some of those in Southern Comfort, however, are directly responsible for the situation they find themselves in, doubling down to make it even worse and seal their fates. Their pig-headed stupidity does little to elicit audience sympathy, or the notion that they don't deserve what they get. Apart from Hardin and Spencer, that is, who marvel disbelievingly at the mind-blowing idiocy of their compatriots and just want to get home in one piece. Hill drew criticism for making his characters larger-than-life stereotypes of the sort you might find in any Lost Patrol-based movie. The inadequate leader, murderous hardnut, religious basket case, dangerous idiot, cavalier wide boy, cynical outsider, and so forth. But I like those characters, their dynamics, and how the individuals with the smarts to make better decisions are marginalised and ignored by the bullying rule of the mob. Maybe another reason US audiences didn't take to it so readily lies in something I wasn't aware of until later. The National Guard was a haven for draft dodgers during the Vietnam War. You could be spared the call-up if you joined the National Guard. Perhaps that knowledge didn't inspire much interest or sympathy. It's no narrative accident that the squad is whittled down to the last 2 men standing, and the last 2 just happen to be the most level-headed and pragmatic. When the men come across the cabin of a one-armed Cajun trapper, Brian James, Casper decides to take him prisoner, backed up by the majority. Hardin and Spencer think they should just let him be, which makes sense, but no, this is war, soldier, it isn't, and if he didn't kill Poole himself, then his friends did. Perfectly logical bigotry. So naturally, Hardin and Spencer are overruled. Bowden, rapidly losing his shit, irrationally wants to execute the trapper for Poole's death. But when he's denied his wish, paints a red cross on his chest and lobs a makeshift Molotov into the man's cabin, which, it just so happens, is full of dynamite, guns, ammo and other supplies they could find a use for. Not anymore. Kaboom! Later, when discussing Bowden, Spencer asks Hardin,
"What do you want me to do about it? Put him in a cage? Shoot him?" Either one sounds okay to me.
See, ever the pragmatist. When Hardin awakens early to find Reese drowning the one-armed trapper in a pond, he intervenes, engaging in a brutal knife fight. He runs Reese through, killing him, and the trapper escapes. Pragmatic? Well, yeah, it's a pivotal moment with bearing on how things play out. Southern Comfort has some great unnerving episodes, especially when the Cajuns employ strategies to toy with and terrorize the squad, like unleashing a feral pack of hunting dogs on their asses. 9 rabbits strung up on trees and gutted when there's 9 of them left. Coincidence? I think not. 7 bear traps set up in waiting when there's 8 of them left. Why 7? When a spring-loaded trap of stakes on a wooden framework impales the token black character Private Cribbs, T.K. Carter, the reason becomes apparent. Only 7 bear traps needed, folks. The Cajuns later dig up the corpses of Poole, Cribbs and Reese, lashing them to a tree in the squad's path. Then they start felling trees onto our hapless toy soldiers, causing chaos and panic. The movie is blessed with a great dynamic ending that has some memorial staying power. Hardin and Spencer find a railway line and Bowden swinging by the neck from a railway bridge. The trapper stands on the bridge with a rifle, presumably because Hardin saved his life by killing Reese. He offers them a chance of survival by directing them to a nearby Cajun shanty town. Celebrations, drinking, food, music, dancing are in full swing. Hardin remains on edge, and when 3 familiar-looking Cajun trappers turn up by boat, it seems like our 2 last men standing are going to have to fight their way through, or die trying. As the finale plays out, it's backed by loud Cajun music, images of animals being graphically slaughtered, violent death, agonizing slow-mo and nail-biting suspense. It's a full-blown cracker. Let's not talk of Deliverance or Vietnam. Let us instead concentrate on... Keith Carradine Spencer represents the most likeable character in the film, but his powers Booth's Hardin, who grabs the attention as an educated man capable of ruthless savagery when it comes to matters of personal survival and cutting through the crap to the heart of the issue. Together they make an unlikely but mutually complementary duo. To prevail, they need to depend on one another, and that's just what they do. Support-wise, Fred Ward, Peter Coyote et al. Are as solid as they come. The action is frantic, violent, and fraught with alarm and pandemonium. It works as an action thriller, a survival odyssey, and a study on toxic machismo, and what happens when a bunch of dumb, ill-equipped weekend warriors get to play soldier in the real world. If the squad had been trained professionals with live ammo, I'm sure the outcomes would have been different. As it is, they're just dumbass yahoos on playdates in the Bayou, and they get fucked for it. Subversively, unlike most platoon in peril picks, there's only 2 squad members you will root for. As for the rest, you'll anticipate their deaths with eager curiosity, whilst feeling satisfied in the knowledge they'll get what's coming, and perhaps even cheering internally when they do. Again, I like that aspect, but not everyone will. Some thinking, how come I find myself on the side of the enemy here? Which is something of the point, questioning just who is the enemy here? An uncomfortable little philosophical poser we should ask ourselves more often, both as a species and as individuals. I think it's one of Walter Hill's best films, maybe his most underappreciated. There is complexity and depth even in ciphers and stereotypes if they're employed creatively enough and in a well-defined narrative structure. Southern Comfort is proof of that. Great stuff to boot, mon cher. Eternal thanks for your time and attention. Feel free to do whatever you choose to do next. Hit like, don't like, comment, subscribe, check out my early access Patreon thing, or even make a welcome financial contribution via the thanks button. Halloween will soon be upon us. Hardly anything special for me, as that's most days around here. Still, I should do something appropriate for it. Not that I will, just saying that I should. We shall see. Meanwhile, son of a gun will have big fun on the